Hello and welcome to episode 3 of this series where we will be talking about customizing the UI or user interfaces of the application. So as you have seen in the previous episodes, when you use ASP.NET Core Identity, you get some pages out of the box, like for example, login or register. But as I told you before, there's nothing stopping you from customizing those pages. Like for example, adding an input for the full name of the user. So we know that our application user, will have a full name. And we created that application user type, extending the identity user, we added that property. And now when the user wants to register a new account, right, we will need to have like an input where the user will enter the full name. And then we will get that full name, we will put it in the database. Again, to do that, we cannot, continue using the default register page that ASP.NET Core Identity provides. We need to customize that page. So we will need to add some, HTML code to the UI to render the, let's say the, to render an input for the full name, and then in the model class of that page, we will also need to add some code so that the full name is grabbed, let's say from the UI, and then it is put into the database when the user wants to create a new user account. So let's get started. The objectives: we want to customize the register page, as I told you, to include the full name. We want to understand how to use user manager to access user info. We want to add this login page and do some customization. We will be implementing the logout functionality. The logout functionality is already there, but we'll take a look at it. And we'll display the user information on the layout after login. So to give you like a brief refresher on the application, we know that our application user expects a full name, but our login partial page doesn't provide anything about that user name thing. So we've got this name which will render the email address of that user, right? And we do not have any pages here, but we will be able to add some scaffolded pages in this area, right? And then customize those pages. And if you take a look at the user table, ASP.NET user, we go to the data. So if you take a look, there are different fields here. There are different let's say columns here that you can use to authenticate the user. There is this last column called full name. If you take a look, this is coming from our application user custom type. So if we didn't have that application user custom type, this field were not here, right? So because identity user doesn't come with a full name property, we extended identity user, we created application user, and now we've got this full name here. And the full name is system administrator. This is coming from the role seeder type that we created in the previous episode. Now, when the user wants to register a new account, we need to have something in the UI of the application to kind of allow the user to enter the full name. And we can do that. So we are going to scaffold the identity UI. We want to customize the user interface of these some of these pages. So we're going to right click on the project, add new scaffolded item, identity add, and then there are different pages that you can override, that you can customize, right? We are going to select register login and logout. And then as the context class, you're going to use application DB context. And application DB context, as you know, is bound to that application user. So when you use application DB context as your context class, you're kind of telling ASP.NET Core Identity about that application user type as well. So it is going to, find out, or kind of, because this has a reference to that application user, it kind of knows that your identity user is this custom type application user. So right-clicking on the project, add a new scaffolded item, As you can see here, there are different, items. I'm gonna click on identity, and then I'm gonna click on this add. It's gonna take a couple of seconds. A dialog will pop up, and you can, select the pages that you want to, scaffold or customize. So these are, the pages that you can customize. As I said, I'm gonna select different pages. I want login, logout, and register. So these are the pages that I am going to select. I want to customize some of these. And then the, DB context class, as I again told you, is going to be our, application DB context, and the user class is going to be the user class that you use here. The database provider is configured from the selected DB context. So let me click add. And after a few seconds, you will see different pages created inside of this folder. So if you take a look at this new folder, accounts, you will see the login, logout, and register, pages. So this is the, login page with some markup that we will probably talk about, some of them. I will probably, dedicate a couple of videos, I don't know, maybe the next video, to explore the code of these 3 pages, because I think they will give us an in-depth understanding of how things are wired up. So these different pages, of course, they have their model classes behind them, right? This is the page model class for the, login page. Then we've got the same thing for, page model, and for the, logout page, and for register page. And there is, quite a lot of code here that you can explore if you want. But again, as I said, I would like to dedicate 3 episodes to each one of these, and to, study the code together so that we better understand how things are wired up. But now that we have added these scaffolded items, we can go ahead and customize them. So modify the register page to include the full name. So we are going to get to this, file, register CSHMOCS, so the page model of our, register page. And then we are going to add this property. So this is going to be a property called full name. The display name is going to be full name with, a white space here, and it is required. So in the register, page model class, we are going to add that property. So this is the register, class, and then there are different classes here, by the way. So instead of the register model class, you've got, again, different classes. By the way, take a look at the different, properties that you have. For example, you have this property called input model, right? This input model, I am going to, again, I told you, dedicate a couple of videos to these different pages. But this input model is a class itself here. So this is the input model. And then we've got what? We've got the email address, right? We've got the password, and so on. So what I want to do in this model class, this input model, where you go, here. I want to add a new property for my full name. So I am going to add that property here. I guess studying the code base of these 3 pages, again, will give us an in-depth understanding of how things are working. So we added that property to our input model class. Then we need to modify the create user method in the same code file to assign the full name when creating the user. So there is this place inside of this, code file where you are, creating the application user, and then you are returning that application user. Before returning that application user, I want to set the full name of that user. So let me take you to the code, this is the place where you are, creating that user. This is the create user method. If you take a look here, modify the create user method to add the full name. Whenever you're trying to create an instance of application user, we need to, assign the full name as well. So let me go ahead and do that. So here I am going to, assign the user. And of course, we need to capture user in a variable, and then we need to return user here, return user. So again, remember, this full name property exists on the application user type. We are creating an instance of that application user, and we are setting the full name, and we are returning that, user. This full name is coming from the property that we just created here in our input model class, right? So let's get to the notes. Then the next step would be to add some markup to this register page so that the user can enter the full name of that user account that it wants to, create. Again, take a look at the code. We are basically creating an input with a label and a span for the, validation messages. Again, as I told you in the beginning, I assume you are already familiar with Razor pages and MVC-based web applications. If that's not the case, you can check out some of my other courses on the channel to get familiar with, these different, elements, these different pieces of code that we are, inserting in the application here. So we are using ASP4 to kind of connect or bind this input to that property that we just created. And then we are adding autocomplete, area required, and placeholder. And then the label is going to be for the full name, and we are going to render this piece of text. Anyway, let's get to the register CSHTML file. This is the file. This is the place where the user can enter the, as you can see here, username, the password, and then the confirmation of that password. And here we can, for example, go ahead and add that div for the full name of that user. So this will, again, allow the user to enter the full name. Now I am going to get back to the notes. Now we need to render the full name in the login partial. So in our login partial, if you remember, we had this line of code from the previous episode. This renders the email address of the user. Now we want to get to the full name. So again, to the database, let's take a look at the database one more time. We've got the database here. If I take a look at the data one more time. So for this user, for example, right, for this user, I've got username. So if I render username, I will get the email address. But if I render the full name, I will get the full name. So in our login partial file, if I get to my login partial, you can see here that my user is going to render its kind of name here, and the name, as I showed you, contains the full name, contains the email address of that user. I'm going to get rid of this. And what I am going to do now, because using application user, I have access to that full name, I am going to get to the full name of my user. So this will allow me to use my user manager, get user async, and then get the result, cast it to a user, and then render the full name. So run and test. Let's run. Let's log in with the user that we have in the database and see whether we get the email address of that user rendered or the username, the full name. I'm going to run the app. So my browser has saved the email and the password. I'm going to log in, and as you can see, now we are getting the full name, not the email address. And if I get to the register page, I can register a new user. So as you can see here, I've got email, full name, password and the confirmation of that password. So let me go ahead and add a new user to this page, to this application. For email, I'm gonna say, I don't know, like pilot user at Gmail. The full name is gonna be pilot user, and then some password. So use a strong password. Let's register. The register confirmation is here. It says this app does not currently have a real email sender, so you can click here to confirm your password. The password is added here, and then you can do what? You can log in now. So you can log in with pilot user and then the password. Let's log in, and you get the full name of that user. So right now, not only we can log into the system, we can also register new users, and then we can see the full name of that user being rendered. So all done. That is the end of this episode, episode number 3. I hope you've enjoyed watching this episode as well. If that's the case, if you're enjoying watching the videos, please make sure you subscribe to the channel so that you do not miss out on any of my upcoming videos, and subscribe to the channel, enable that notification bell, and stay tuned because we're getting to some really fun stuff. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next episode.